All right, the time is now 6 p.m. Our regular city council meeting for August 15, 2023 is now in session. First on the agenda is Councilmember Hayward will lead us with the opening prayer and the pledges of allegiance to the flags of the United States and the state of Texas. Please rise.
Everyone bow your heads. Heavenly Father, we come before you in this council meeting with humble hearts and minds. We thank you for allowing us to arrive here safely. We thank you for the gift of your word, which is our source of guidance and truth. We ask that you guide us as we seek to make wise decisions today. Help us discern your will from our lives and our community. We are thankful for our staff. Please continue to give them the will to work together as a team to make Schertz the place that we know it can be. We're thankful you've given us dedicated volunteers to help the city grow and prosper. Lord, protect our first responders as they are out on calls and on byways and highways. Father, please put your armor protection around us as we travel home and bring us back safely at the next time. I see these blessings in your son's name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you all for joining us here today. And we also have Dr. Scagliola on the monitor. All right, so we'll move on with the city events and announcements of upcoming city events. Mr. James?
I can do it from here. All right, so just a reminder, the city will be closed for Labor Day on Monday, September 4th. Our next regular council meeting is Tuesday, September 5th here in council chambers. And just as a reminder on the election, the city of Schertz will be holding its general election on November 7th, 2023 for the purposes of electing council members in places 3, 4, and 5 for 3-year terms, November 2023 to November 26. Filing ends Monday, August 21st at 5 p.m. Completed applications with filing fees will be accepted by the city secretary's office from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday from July 24th through August 21st, 2023. The candidate packet is available in the city secretary's office at the Hal Baldwin Municipal Complex at 1400 Schertz Parkway, Building 2, or online. And if anyone has questions, they can contact the city secretary's office at 210-619-1030.
Thank you, Mr. James. Announcements and recognitions by our city manager. Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of announcements. I just wanted to highlight that we did have a promotion, and Larry Bush was promoted to our full-time Public Works Director. He's been serving in that capacity for some time now, and we've moved him up permanently. Also, some of the things that are happening around town, the library hosted an indoor miniature golf event on Saturday, July 29th, and there were over 1,100 people in attendance. The Schertz-Seguin Local Government Corporation is recognizing Kenneth Greenwald for his service to the SSLGC. He contributed quite a bit to the success of SSLGC over the years. He served as the he served on the Schertz City Council from 1983 to 2005, and he was a strong supporter of seeking out alternative, reliable, long-term water supply source for the city of Schertz. He was also instrumental in the creation of the SSLGC in 1998 and served as the council's representative on the initial board of directors. He also continued as a member of the board of directors from 2006 to 2008 and 2010 to 2021. And the SSLGC board of directors has proclaimed the original water treatment plant within the Gonzales water treatment facility to be dedicated as the Kenneth Greenwald Water Treatment Building. And there'll be a dedication that'll be held on Tuesday, October 10th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. and that is in Nixon, Texas.
All right, thank you, Mr. Williams. Announcements and recognitions by the mayor. I have none, so we'll move on. Next is on the agenda is the hearing of residents. This time is set aside for anyone who wishes to address the city council. Each person is limited to 3 minutes, and we ask before addressing the council, for the record, please state your name and address. Now, we also have some public hearings, so it is your choice if you like to speak during the hearing of residents, or if you want to speak during the public hearing, you may also do that. It's your option, or you may speak at both. All right, with that, Mayor Pro Tem, please call our first speaker.
We have Sheila Edmondson's going to be relaying 5 emails.
Yeah, I'll be reading 3, and Ms. Curry will be reading the last 2.
Okay, very good.
The first letter is from Ms. Carol Davis. She lives at 3337 Wimbledon Drive. She writes, Mr. Mayor and council members, the discussion of a new budget does not reflect the conditions in which the public deserves to know about where and how and whom is caring for Canine Officer Medor. Since May of 2023, when Canine Officer Medor's handler left Schertz PD, this community has been without a canine officer in patrol. Questions for council. Number 1, where is Canine Officer Medor being cared for? 2, is Canine Officer Medor getting the daily, weekly, required training needed to maintain his working status? 3, who is caring for Canine Officer Medor? 4, why was Canine Officer Medor's handler denied the opportunity to purchase him when Canine Officer Medor is already close to his retirement age? 5, does the city see only Canine Officer Medor as a tool and not as a loyal, hardworking member of the Schertz PD who has honorably served this community for many years and is now ready to move to the next stage of life with his family? This community deserves to be told the justification behind why the city has denied Canine Officer Medor's handler's request to purchase him. The community also deserves to know and actually see the condition in which this Schertz canine officer is being housed. This community is attempting to attract more police officers. Then this community needs to show that it cares for its officers. Thank you. She writes. Letter number 2 is from Deidre Lee, and her address is 622 Aviation Avenue. She writes, Honorable Mayor and City Council, as you know, the city's vision statement reads, community, service, opportunity. You have an opportunity to show our community that you value and honor the faithful service of current and former employees. I value and fully support all law enforcement officers and their work, which is why I feel very passionately about my request. Please reunite Canine Officer Medor and his former Schertz police officer, Corporal Jason Handley. The two have worked cooperatively as a team, serving the city of Schertz for several years. Since working cooperatively as a team is a core value of the city, this is your opportunity as the city's leaders to do the same. Please honor the canine handler relationship and allow Jason Handley to adopt his aging partner. Texas Proposition 10, Transfer of Care of Law Enforcement Animals Amendment, and this was written in 2019, was overwhelmingly passed by voters because they recognized the importance of maintaining the relationship between long-serving canines and their handlers once confronted with retirement or other such related scenarios. This amendment allowed for the transfer of law enforcement animals, such as a dog or horse, to the animal's handler or other qualified caretaker if the transfer is in the animal's best interest. Medor is 8 years old and is at or not far from his canine retirement age. A well-deserved retirement with the only handler he has known is most definitely in his best interest. Senate Bill 2100, 86R, states that canines are not surplus material and should not be treated as such. Additionally, it states that former handlers receives priority over any other person when a canine is released from service. It is well known that older canines do not do well when they have to retrain with another handler. The canine handler bond is exceptionally strong, as it needs to be for the work performed. Here is the bottom line. Medor is at retirement age. Mr. Hanley is capable of caring for Medor and even offered to buy Medor from the department, but was denied. Yet the department attempted to sell to another individual, clearly not in alignment with SB 2100, which was signed into law. Please allow Medor to return home to his partner and family. He worked hard to serve our community. Now it's your opportunity and duty to honor the service of both Canine Officer Medor and Jason Hanley, exemplifying these city core values. Treat others the way you would like to be treated. Do the best you can. Do the right thing. Mayor and council, I implore you to put yourself in Jason's shoes and treat him as you would want to be treated, to do the very best you can to reunite the aging canine with his partner, and most importantly, to do absolutely the right thing and compassionately retire Medor and send him home. Many people support Medor going home to Jason. One petition has garnered over 2,500 signatures in less than a week. Thank you for your time this evening and opportunity to share my concern. Ms. Deidre Lee also attached the link to change.org, which is keeping track of the signatures, and as of 7:04 this morning, there was 2,557 signatures. Letter number 3, topic, Schertz, Canine Officer Medor. This is from Ms. Molly Lee, 622 Aviation Avenue. Mr. Mayor and City Council members, I am writing to you all tonight in regard to Canine Officer Medor and former City of Schertz Police Corporal Jason Hanley. I recently became aware of the separation of Medor and Jason and felt someone needed to speak up. Schertz is my hometown, and up to this point, I have been very proud to say I am from Schertz. I started a petition to gather support on the matter, and at this moment have 2,500 plus signatures. Many comments were left along with the signatures, and I encourage you to take a look. Jason Hanley loyally served the Schertz Police Department for 10 plus years, and Medor approximately 7 years. Jason and Medor were united as a team in 2017 and have worked solely with one another until Jason's departure from the department in May of 2023. I strongly believe in the bond between the animal and their human, even more so for working dogs and their handlers as they eat, sleep, and work together. There is minimal separation of the team. That is why I'm requesting that you all please look into and greatly consider reunification of the two. Medor is now 8 years old, and retirement ranges from 6 to 10 years old, putting him right in the middle of that range. Myself and many others feel as though he has provided more than enough service and time to the city and should be allowed to rest and live out his remaining days with his family. The point I would like to make is that Medor is at retirement age, and his separation has already caused a significant decline in his health and happiness. It has been said that Medor's head hangs low when he's entering the police station and is not his normal self. Information that was provided to Chief Lowry in a letter of request to adopt Medor's health and separation anxiety was completely disregarded. I encourage you to request and obtain a copy of this letter from Chief Lowry, as it outlines Medor's health, the bond with his handler, and requirements, costs to train a new handler to Medor and Medor to that handler. I thank you for all your time and consideration of this matter.
This letter is from Sabrina Richardson, 632 Aviation Avenue. The topic is former longtime Schertz police officer Jason Hanley and K-9 officer Medor. Schertz is a close community, and the conversation around the action of the Schertz PD leadership regarding Medor and Jason Hanley is less than flattering. The decisions made by the department are deemed retaliatory in nature and most definitely not in the best interest of the 8-year-old K-9 officer. The comments on the petition are worth a look. In less than 1 week of publishing a petition, there have been over 2,500 signatures of support in reuniting Medor and Jason out of compassion and simple humanity for the years of service the two have provided to the citizens of Schertz and surrounding communities. Many comments referenced how cruel it is to sever the bond the two share. Some stated how relatively unsuccessful it is to restore the skills with a new handler, and others mentioned the failure to thrive, anxiety, and depression the dogs experience if they are distressed about the separation. Several supporters are reaching out to the media. In fact, KSAT News has recently interviewed the police chief. Many law enforcement groups and individuals are seeking support for Jason and Medor through their social media. The responses to these efforts are really painting a picture of the city of Schertz as a vengeful and cruel entity, which is not what we want as a community. Please do the right thing and reconsider Jason's request to purchase Medor and allow this K-9 to retire with the only handler he has known and reunite them so that Medor can have the best rest of his life possible. Thank you for your consideration. The next one is from Marty Goodrich. I don't have an address. It says, Dear Mayor and City Council, I want to start off by thanking you all for your service to the community. Unfortunately, I am traveling for work this week and could not attend in person. I respectfully request that the leadership team for the City of Schertz look into the possibility of reuniting a loyal police K-9, Medor, with his former partner and family member, Officer Jason Hanley. While I don't know all the details of this situation other than what I read on a Facebook post, I would hope that the decision to not allow Medor to stay with his family was justified and not meant as punishment or done out of spite due to Officer Jason Hanley leaving the Schertz PD. I would like to believe that the decision was done with the best interest of Medor in mind, but I just cannot come up with a good reason. I may not know the reason because I don't have all the facts, but it surely doesn't feel like it was the right decision for Officer Medor and his family. What I do know is I cannot imagine having my dogs removed from my family, as my dogs are part of my family. We would be devastated, and I'm sure my dogs would be too. Please look into allowing Medor to return with his family that he has known for the last 8 years. Signed, Marty Goodrich.
Next up, Mr. Richard Jevitt.
Thank you very much. It's Richard Jevitt, 2550 Chasefield Drive in Schertz. And what I wanted to do is just say thank you to the City Council, the staff, especially for that wonderful presentation that they did in acknowledging the boards and commissions the other day. It was a fantastic performance by everybody in those beautiful grass skirts. But what I wanted to say more than anything else is that it's very important to be able to say that the citizens are able to get into an organization that can and does benefit the city, benefit the council as well, maintain a community and a city that is growing as well as we are. Again, thank you very much.
Michelle Terletsky.
Michelle Terletsky, 705 Maryland Drive, Schertz, of course. This month will be 46 years that I have lived in this city. That was when Kramer Farms was actually a farm. There was no Schertz Parkway. There was no Jonas Woods. There was no Ashley Place. There was no Woodland Oaks. There were 3 schools and 3 churches. I had apartments right no more than 100,000 feet from me. There are apartments now over here. There was a 4-way stop to get across 35. No traffic lights on 3009. One grocery store that was called Handy Andy turned into Weiss. The city grew. And those of us that live in the old part of the Schertz watched it grow. And we're happy that it's grown. If you don't grow, you become stagnant and you die. You have no place for your young people to stay, and all your old people are dying off. Now, the real reason I'm here, there has been a resident, and maybe more than one, but a particular resident that comes up and talks to you and blatantly misuses a rule that y'all have. That rule says all remarks shall be addressed to the council as a body. And that resident points to a particular council person and has done it more than once and makes a snarky remark after the fact. Now, whether it's before, during, or after their speech, according to this rule, they're not supposed to do that. If you have somebody playing in a sandbox and they're throwing up sand and leaving Tootsie Rolls, you ask them to leave that sandbox. And my question is, this has got to stop, and why hasn't it stopped prior to that? They're not only disrespecting the one council person, they're disrespecting all of you and disrespecting the citizens that voted for that council person, in addition to the crowd of 5 that we come consistently and play nice in the sandbox. So I'm asking you, the next time that person gets up there, to take action. If you're not going to abide by a rule, don't have the rule.
And I hope I don't mess this name up, Fairelia Dillard? Fairelia Dillard? Oh, okay. Thank you. Julie Bostwick.
Forgive me, I'm not very good at public speaking. I get a little nervous. But thank you all for giving me this opportunity to speak to you.
Could we have your name and address, please?
My name is Julie Bostwick, 967 Primrose Path.
Thank you.
It's with great concern and sadness that I'm even needing to speak to you all. There are some things in life that I believe are just rules. That as decent human beings, we know. We abide by them because they are right and they are just. When in the course of living a life, you see evidence of that not being the case, you have to come forward, you have to stand up, and you have to do what's right. To separate a beautiful dog, Mador, from his handler at an age where in all the communities around you, the working canines are being retired. And yet Mador is not being retired, begs the question of why is this case different? I'm not a police officer. I'm not a first responder. But I do know this. Sometimes things are a symptom of even greater problems. And that is fearfully what I believe is going on here. Not only is it wrong that the handler and the dog are separated, and the dog has, in one of the hottest records, summer heat records in history, been being kept outdoors in a run. Not only is that wrong, but the whole idea that the dog can sit and wait and be used at a later date. The lifespan of a German Shepherd is 9 to 12 years. That's the lifespan. Mador can no longer even be insured for the city past 10 years of age. Mador recently turned 8. It is my understanding that Chief Lowry said that Medora is going to be able to work 4 more years. I greatly, greatly hope the city would not make that mistake. The liability financially that you could be under for working a dog when they are not insurable, I don't have to explain that. Just like we all know some things are just right and some things are just wrong. I guess when he said in a phone call when somebody got a hold of him at the police department regarding this that, you know, we're just going to work him. We're going to work him for 2 to 4 more years. Well, let's do the math. Medora's 8. Lifespan of a German Shepherd, 12. I guess when he made the remark, we're going to work him to death, he meant it. This saddens me. It concerns me. Because if we can use a dog, who we all know pretty much are angels with 4 legs, to perhaps pursue a personal petty vendetta, what does that tell our officers about what they can expect to be treated by, like, and what does that tell the citizens of Schertz they can expect? I humbly submit that if you can treat a dog like that, you're probably not going to treat a human being much better. Thank you.
Luke Hanley.
Luke Hanley, 967 Primrose Path. No relation to Officer Hanley, who's been spoken for before. I'm also speaking about Officer Medora as well. And though we've heard of quite a few emotional pleas, I want to implore the city to look at it from an issue of liability. As was just stated, there's the obvious liability with him approaching an age, being uninsurable. There's also the fact that, you know, there's separation anxiety and other health problems that an older dog gets, especially after bonding with somebody for 8 years. But it's the message that's being sent to the first responders in this city that we just prayed for their well-being. What message are we sending to them? That we're going to use an animal until its life cycle is completely over, to then just be discarded like a piece of equipment. It's simply that is what's being done right now, and it's sad. Terrifying even, because if that's how you're going to treat your officers, what's next? Will the city just let them use tires well past their use? Will they use body armor that's past its best by date? Should we just use substandard OC spray and other non-lethal deterrents, or not use in-spec tourniquets? This goes beyond just the animal. There's the legal liabilities, there's the moral dilemma, obviously, and there's the fact that we should do what's right, what's on this very piece of paper. Do the right thing. Do your best. Why can't we do that as a city? And that's what I implore you to do. And I would also like to state that Corporal Hanley received an honorable discharge. He was a good man who just wants to be with his dog. I think, like many of us, if somebody came into our house and took our animal away, it would be very disconcerting. And the anguish for both of them was quite immense. Thank you.
Michelle Frey.
My name is Michelle Fry. I live at 2833 Valencia Lane, and I am also here to speak regarding Officer Hanley and Medora. As a former dispatcher, I understand the relationship that the canines have with their, I didn't start my start button. Do you want me to start that?
Ms. Edmondson?
There we
Okay,
go. Okay, thank you. I understand that the relationship the canines have with their officers. I understand the bond they have. But I also understand, as somebody who's become an accounting specialist for a neighboring city for several years, I understand that he's listed as an asset. And I understand that assets depreciate. He is an 8-year-old dog with a median lifespan of 9.7 years for male German Shepherds. When they speak about the bonding, it is concerning because I know that another officer has been approached to train and work with him, But in that time, from an 8-year-old to the 9.7 lifespan median, of course, because I know they're all different, that takes time. And it's going to reflect on the city. Whether he works well with him, whether he's able to do his full job, that is a concern to me. I understand, again, like I said, that he is an asset. I understand. But when you start that age, the depreciation of the asset starts to mount up with vet bills, insurance, all of the different expenditures that come. So my imploring to y'all tonight to reunify him with Officer Hanley, I apologize, retired Officer Hanley, and do the right thing like our core values state. Thank you.
Next, Sandy Goodrich.
My name is Sandy Goodrich. I live at 3933 Windy Brook, and I'm also here to speak about the canine. And I think most of the speakers have said everything I want to say. I just ask you to please have a heart. Without a heart of love and joy, and really we don't have anything, right? So I love dogs and I love the city I live in. I know a lot of people disagree with decisions y'all make, but without y'all we wouldn't have a good city. So I just ask that you please have a heart and consider returning the dog, and that's it.
Robert Westbrook.
Hey, good evening, Mayor Gutierrez, City Council members. I am Robert Westbrook. I live at 4073 Brook Hollow, right here in Schertz, Texas. Came just to make a brief introduction about myself. As you may know, that I did file to run for City Council, be a member of Schertz City Council. And so a little bit about myself: as graduated from Churchill High School, Southwest Texas State University. Finished from Webster University with a master's in business administration. From there, joined the San Antonio Fire Department for like the last 24 years. Worked my way up through the ranks. Now I'm a division chief with the San Antonio Fire Department, Office of Fire Marshal, and I'm responsible for all the hazardous materials inspections and sort of the special events in the city of San Antonio. Some of the things I've accomplished, most importantly, is I've raised 2 wonderful kids along with my ex-wife. Both of them have graduated from college, doing wonderfully. One's an architect, and my son is seeking to go to UTSA for a master's degree in psychology, but at the same time, he wants to be a mixed martial artist. So make that make sense. I don't know what that, maybe he does need a psychology degree, but he's a wonderful young man. And so what else is there about me? Many people ask why. I'm already serving many of the citizens that I'm already serving, right? And so many of the parents, many of the students, I'm already serving them at a different level. And so the opportunity to just serve them at a different municipal level, at a different local level, be a better advocate for them, I think is the main reason. I've enjoyed my time on the Schertz School Board. We've done amazing things, served with 2 superintendents. We were an honor board for a time. Dr. Greg Gibson was a superintendent of the year. So it's been a wonderful time, but I just think it's a great opportunity for me to serve at a different level. And to give back and make Schertz better than what I left it. So thank you very much. You have a great time, and anybody call me if you need me. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
And I believe this is Ginger Levan.
Thank you for getting that right. I am Ginger Levan. I live at 1504 Red Cedar Cove in Greenshire, Schertz. I have 2 things that I want to speak about, so I have to be really quick, I guess. Mayor, council members, this was in the San Antonio Express newspaper about the mail handlers and water and staying hydrated. What I want to really highlight, though, is the mail handlers and Schertz, and I know this is not your jurisdiction, but I hope you are aware of this, that the post office in Schertz hasn't had water even to refill their bottles while they're on duty, and for some time the restrooms weren't even working for them. So our handlers in Schertz are having a harder time than what has already gone to Congress in DC. And I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that because they are suffering out there. Okay, you've heard a lot about Medor. I come with a different perspective. Everything that's been said is absolutely true. You see that I walked up here with my service dog. He is my third service dog. The fourth one is being trained as we speak. He's in retirement year. He is 7 years old. When I first got him and started his training, he was up to about 35 different tasks. I had to be careful because he had bad hips. From the time he was 6 months old to now being 7 years old, he is down to only being able to do about 4 of the tasks I need him to do because of his health. And that's one of the things I want to point out for canines too. The longer they're working, their heart is there, but their bodies physically can't do that. One of the things that I do for free is I do consultant work on service and working dogs of any kind, and I offer my services to the city, to the police department, if there's anything I can do to help facilitate what is happening right now. Because I see all over the internet, and I personally watch all the police departments across the country honoring their canines in their retirement, and the message going out on the radio about the retirement and all the tears and the dogs walking through all the officers to retire. And that's not what I'm seeing here in Schertz. And that's what upsets me the most. So I offer my services. You know how to get a hold of me now. The secretary has my information. And thank you very much for your time.
Mayor, that's all for tonight.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I'd like to take a moment to thank you all for your deep concerns for our canine, also known as Medorn. It is our highest priority to ensure the safety and wellness of our canine. Medorn's keen and impressive sense make him a valuable asset and effective law enforcement officer in every sense. The Schertz Police Department invested considerable resources in Medorn's specialized training and care. Medorn has been trained to assist members of law enforcement in various tasks, adding an extra layer of security to our community. Unfortunately, the circumstances surrounding Medorn's previous handler and his recent departure is beyond our control. However, it is our goal to ensure and continue to support the best outcome for our canine officer, taking into account his well-being and meet the requirements of his role and his future success as our police dog. Thank you all for coming out here. All right, we'll move on. Next on the agenda is consent agenda items. These items are considered self-explanatory and information packets are provided to council and available for public viewing. These items require no separate discussion unless requested by council. Item number 1A, minutes. Item number 1B, resolution number 23R76. Item number 2, resolution number 23R67. Item number 3, resolution number 23R66. Item number 4, resolution number 23R77. Item number 5, resolution number 23R78. Item number 6, resolution number 23R79. Item number 7, resolution number 23R80. Item number 8, resolution number 23R81. Item number 9, resolution number 23R82. Item number 10, resolution number 23R69. Item number 11, resolution number 23R73. And item number 12, resolution number 23R74. Council, do any of these need to be removed for separate action? Is there a motion to approve consent agenda items 1 through 12?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Hayward and second by Councilmember Dalla. Any other comments? Council, if you can cast your vote. Councilman Scagliola?
Vote aye.
You can go ahead and publish the vote. Okay, it's 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. All right, we'll move on to item number 13, discussion items. Resolution number 23R68, calling for a charter review and appointment of the Charter Review Commission to review the present proposal amendments for the city charter. I have been advised by our legal counsel that once we appoint them, we have 45 days to start the commission and 180 days after that to complete it. With that, I'd like to go ahead and table this until November, our second meeting in November. That way we are within the time frame to start in January. The names that were submitted, we'll still hold on to them and make that proposal available for the November meeting. So with that, I make the motion to table until the November meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? The motion is to table for the second meeting in November. I made it from the chair and second by Councilmember Hayward. No other discussion? If you can go ahead and cast your votes. Councilmember Scagliola?
Aye.
All right, if you can go ahead and publish the vote. Okay, the vote is 7 yeas, no objection, motion passes. It is tabled for our second meeting in November. We'll move on to item number 14. Ordinance number 23M17, amendment of the City of Schertz Code of Ordinance and certain other ordinances by amending and establishing fee and certain license permits and other services provided by the City of Schertz. This is our first reading. Mr. Walters, the floor is yours.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is James Walters. I'm the Finance Director for the City of Schertz. I want to walk you through the proposed changes to the fee schedule, and then for the water and sewer fees, we have a brief presentation by our rate consultant from Wildan, Mr. Dan Jackson. So very quickly, we don't believe a lot of these fees will have a major financial impact on the city. There are small adjustments to adjust for services, cost increases in their respective areas, and some areas where they just kind of make sense. So under the holidazzle, we're proposing to remove the fee for a business parade entry. Honestly, we don't have a whole lot of business entries in that parade. It's a relatively small parade. So this is not necessarily a physical impact, and save some staff time and be a little more efficient in that event operation. For the EMS side, increasing the mileage per mile from $22 to $25 to coordinate with the increased vehicle maintenance costs as well as the fuel costs that we've seen. Other changes are the standby fees going up. This is just to have sort of an EMS crew on site for football games or other types of events, as well as increasing the EMT class cost from $1,100 to $1,200. Again, that class has been very popular, constantly booked out, people showing up before the doors even open with a line, trying to get in and get registered for the classes. So this is to help offset some of the additional training costs that we've seen as well. And then the per capita is just sort of for reference. All these contracts that council saw back in July already includes this rate. And since this is a comprehensive fee schedule of all city fees, we're making that change reflected here. Now, fire has a host of changes to the fees. Overall, there's not going to be a whole lot of difference as far as if you're currently getting a fire permit, you will still be getting a fire permit. They're going to be a little more selective in what kind of permits, maybe changing fees for certain types of inspections rather than others. As an example, sort of the current license inspections, about $50. The animal daycare, or sorry, the annual daycare or foster care centers, no charge, or currently not charging one. We're going to list that out separately. And some of the other type of intense sort of inspections that they do will be updated to reflect current cost of sending out the inspector, as well as meet what the charges are, or you see like charges in other cities and communities around us. Before, we just kind of listed a fire sprinkler system or a fire suppression system. Now we're going to break that out into fire sprinklers, as well as the fire alarms, and then there are some other ones like kitchen hood, the emergency responder radio, underground fire lines, fire type, gaseous suppression systems, are all different types of suppression systems that were previously covered under one fee code. As well as making some changes to above ground storage tanks and below ground, the access control. So again, they have quite a few as far as changes as well as volume. We are planning to implement these over the course of next year as we work out and get these programmed into our new system. Overall, we don't expect a huge dollar amount change as far as revenue is concerned from these changes. Under the inspection side, adding some technology fees. We didn't usually have technology fees. We do have the new CityView software. With that comes some other annual maintenance fees related to the software. And we see other communities also charging sort of a technology fee, so it's a quite common and standard in the field. They're also going to remove, no cost, some of the licenses and registrations they have with us. So again, if they already have to have a statewide registration, so don't need to turn around and charge them again to register with us. And these are the last remaining trades that we were charging or had listed registration fees for in our fee schedule. So this is zeroing them out and making the same as all the other trades. I'm going to skip over the sewer and water real quick. I want to touch on one more before I hand it off to Dan Jackson. The engineering, so the development permit. So this is a recent change from the legislature. We're no longer able to charge what previously was 1% of the cost of infrastructure for the permit inspections. So we went through and these permits could be 1%. These are like $5 million types of improvements. So 1% fee could be $50,000. Cover in that range to see what it could be. And instead, we're going with more of a cost of actual service, working on calculating those out. And as we go through this next year, seeing what the actual cost of service are, and we'll adjust the fees then. But kind of breaking them out instead of just an overall 1% or percent of project, we'll have a base fee. If it's a water, sewer, drainage type project, there'll be a per linear foot type permit and inspection fee. And again, if they want a third-party plan review instead of doing it in-house, whatever the cost of that third party is that we go out and get, that'll be what we would pass on without any upcharge. As well as the construction inspection, again, the base fee, and then the per linear foot type for drainage, streets, and water, wastewater, depending on what it is. We believe this is the best way to go right now. Everyone's kind of scrambling to get this in place because the legislation didn't kind of leave us a whole lot of time to calculate these and get these put in there. This is what will go right now because we kind of have to. This is what the legislation said we have to do. This is our first kind of go at it, and we'll see what other communities do and what's kind of accepted by the state and the Attorney General going forward. Again, we don't expect a whole lot of change in cost with this as far as putting in these infrastructure, and this is targeted more of making sure we charge the right fee for our folks and for the work we do. So if we have questions over any of these particular fees, we have the experts on those coming forward. Real quick on the sewer and water. So I'll go over the overall, still Dan's thunder. And just as mentioned in the agenda item, I believe it's 3% increase on the sewer fees and 2.5% on the water. Relatively small changes going forward. It kind of reflects what the changes in cost coming from SSLG and CVLGC, which are our main providers. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Dan Jackson to go over the water, and then we'll field questions over any of the fees using the experts we have here with us.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'm Dan Jackson, Vice President of Wildan Financial Services. We've had the pleasure of doing some periodic rate analyses and rate updates for the city of Schertz over the last decade, and I really appreciate the opportunity to come back and talk with you again tonight. We were engaged most recently by the city to do a new comprehensive review of your water and wastewater rate fund. And I'd like to spend a few minutes talking you through some of our results of our analysis and our recommendations for your long-term rate plan. I think that's important because water costs are going up pretty significantly throughout not only the state of Texas, but the nation in general. And one of the big challenges that cities like Schertz face in the future is managing these cost increases in a way that gets you the revenue you need while minimizing the impact on your ratepayers. Like I said, I'm going to go through the presentation as quickly as possible because I know you've got a long agenda tonight. But I want to start this out by talking a little bit about what's happening in the industry, because it's very important for decision makers such as yourselves to understand the forces at work behind the water industry today. Look, we have 7 billion people on the planet today. We had 1 billion people 100 years ago, but we've got the exact same amount of fresh water. So for that reason, water challenges are becoming increasingly significant in the 21st century. As a result, the average utility has been raising its rates 5 to 6% every year, both here in Texas and across the country. The American Water Works Association anticipates that water costs are going to triple in the next 15 years. So while we have access to this valuable resource that we literally can't live without, it simply is going to be more expensive in the future. Now, why is that? Well, the main reason is that the cost of everything goes up by 3 to 5% a year just due to inflation, but you also have other costs in the water business like chemicals, electricity, insurance, workers' comp. All of those are going up at higher rates. And your water providers are facing these same challenges and they're increasing their costs as well. So all of those forces are at play that are forcing costs up right now. And so that's why these periodic rate updates are important, because by understanding the trends, you can enact a financial plan that minimizes the impact on your ratepayers. Finally, keep this in mind. Everybody likes to compare their rates to their neighbors, and your rates actually compare pretty favorably to them. But 30 to 40% of utilities right now charge rates that don't cover their costs. So just because another utility's rates are lower than yours, that doesn't necessarily mean that they run a more efficient system. It might mean that they're subsidizing their rates from their general fund. You don't do that here. You've never done it in my experience, but that is an important thing for you to keep in mind. So let's just take a quick look at what you charge for water and sewer service. You charge for water service in two ways: a minimum charge and then a rate per 1,000 gallons. Your minimum charge is based on your meter size. For most of your residential customers, they have a 5/8 inch meter and they pay a minimum charge of $25.84 right now. You then pay a volumetric charge that increases with the amount of water that you use. That's what's known as a conservation rate, and it is very, very successful at getting people to minimize water usage. You know, water is a funny business. Water is a business. I mean, you produce a product. Water is a product just like a McDonald's hamburger is. But you're in the business of producing a product that you want your customers not to buy because you want them to conserve and use water in a very efficient manner. So that's why you have water rates that increase with usage. On the sewer side, you charge a monthly charge of $15.01 and a volume rate of $4.94 per 1,000 gallons. And for those few residential customers that use more than 12,000, and very few of them do, they pay a much higher rate. Now, how does that compare to other communities? Like I said before, remember, 30 to 40% of utilities charge rates that don't cover their costs. But this chart right here shows that you compare actually very favorably to the state of Texas in general and this area in particular. A typical residential customer here uses about 10,000 gallons of water service and sewer service in a month. They pay $98.97 for that here in the city of Schertz. As you can see, you're higher than some, you're lower than others. And that you're right about where you would expect to be. Interestingly enough, though, you're about almost $20 below the state average. So you pay below state average rates here in the city of Schertz. So while costs are going up for everybody, even in the rate plan that we present to you tonight, your rates will still continue to compare very favorably to your neighbors. Just a couple of quick charts to talk about where you are as a system right now. City has had some very significant growth over the last decade. You now have about 16,091 customers in your water division. That amount is expected to increase to about 18,881 customers by 2033. That's an increase of about 300 to 400 accounts per year. So you've got some fairly robust growth here, and that is all anticipated and entailed in the rate plan itself. This chart right here shows your water usage. Water nerds like me love charts like this because it shows how people use water and how they anticipate using them in the future. Look what happened here in the city of Schertz. For the period 2012 to 2020, your usage was actually pretty steady. Kind of went up a little bit, down a little bit, but starting at about 2020, you're starting to see some pretty significant increases. You want to know why that's happening? Well, in my opinion, it's mostly due to the very, very warm weather we've had here the last couple of years. I actually live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and it's almost as hot there as it is here. And the last couple of years, you've had very unusually hot summers, and that's kind of driven your usage up a little bit. And that's the thing about running a water business, is that you have to have a system in place that ensures that even in very hot summers, you still have the ability to supply water to people. And that tends to drive your costs up a little bit. But as you can see, we're projecting that your costs are going to, that your water usage is going to continue to increase over the next decade as you continue to grow. Okay, let's talk a little bit about your costs. As James indicated earlier, there are two real primary factors that are driving up your costs right now. And that's the water, the wholesale water that you purchase from SSLGC, and the sewer service that you send to CCMA, Cibolo Creek Municipal Authority. SSLGC projects that their costs are going to go up about 4 to 5% a year for each year for the next decade. They do a long-term forecast, and that's what their increase is. CCMA is also expected to increase their costs by about 5% a year. Now, yeah, those numbers are a little higher than average, but when you compare to other wholesale providers here in the state of Texas, for example, the North Texas Municipal Water District is probably the largest regional water authority in Texas. They're in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. They're increasing their water rates by 11% a year, each year for the next 5 years. So water costs are going up for everybody. So while it's unpleasant to see your wholesale provider increasing their costs, it's really no more and actually a little less than what you're seeing around the rest of the state. In addition, when you do a long-term water rate plan, you have to look at other costs that are going up. Your other operating costs are expected to go up about 3% a year. Salaries are probably going to go up a little higher because right now the city is in the process of doing a salary study, and you're going to be adjusting your salaries accordingly as a result of that study. Now, for most utilities, the biggest factor in cost increases is not necessarily the wholesale water provider, but it's the capital improvement costs. Because you know what? It costs millions of dollars to build a water system, to build a system that pushes water through your city and provides service to people at any time of any day. And like any asset, they wear out over time, and the city has to continue to invest in that system to ensure that you continue to provide an acceptable level of service. The city of Schertz is anticipated to fund about $77 million over the next decade to fund capital improvement needs. But amazingly enough, this is going to have very little impact on your rates. And that's due to the fact that the city has exercised very solid financial management over the last several years. You've built up your reserves, you have impact fees in place, and the impact fees and the reserves are going to pay for most of this. The amount of debt that you're going to have to issue to fund it is only about $15 million. So, good financial management minimizes the burden on ratepayers, and that's exactly what we're experiencing here. A lot of these costs are due to growth. The impact fees are paying for it. In other words, the impact fees are doing exactly what you expect them to do. I know it wasn't easy to implement impact fees. They can be high for some communities, but they're really paying off because it is easing the burden on your current customers. This right here is just a summary of the major water and wastewater capital projects. Most of them are going to be wastewater oriented, about $59 million in wastewater and about $17 million in water. So what does this mean? Well, this very colorful chart here shows your increasing costs over the next decade. Right now, it's costing you somewhere around $25 million a year to run your water and sewer utility. We project that by the year 2033, it's going to cost you about $35 million. The blue portion of each bar is SSLGC costs, and the green portion is CCMA wastewater costs. So as you can see, those are really kind of driving most of the increases. You can see how they go up at a little bit higher pace than the others. Your other operating costs, they're going up. Cost of everything goes up. Your new debt is the black portion of the bar, but what's also beneficial is that some of your existing debt's going to roll off in the next few years. So while you're going to be issuing new debt, the burden on your ratepayers isn't going to be any higher than what it is right now because of the existing debt that you're going to pay off. Once again, that's good financial management. So let's talk about the rate plan. Somebody did steal my thunder a little bit here. But what we're recommending is that the city implement a 2% increase in your water rates and a 3% increase in your wastewater rates. This chart right here shows the rates that would go into effect in October of 2023. We are also presenting a forecast of the next 4 years. We believe that the rate adjustments will be similar for each of the next 4 years. You're probably looking at 2% water rate increases for each of the next 4 years beyond October of 2023. We recommend that the rates go into effect October 1st, 2023, with the beginning of your fiscal year. This is your projected wastewater rate. That's a 3% adjustment. Your monthly charge will go from $15.01 to $15.46, with the volume rate going up by about 15 cents per 1,000 gallons. Now, what does this mean? What does this mean in terms of what people pay? Well, this is probably the most important chart in the entire presentation. It's also one of the last charts. It shows what the impact will be on your average residential customers at different usage levels. Remember what I told you, the average usage of a residential customer here in the city is about 9,000 to 10,000 gallons a month. Now that varies a little more in the summer, a little less in the winter, but it is an average. So if you're a 10,000 gallon user, right now you're paying $123.67 for that service. Under this plan, your bill would go up by $3.12 a month. That's 2.5%. If you're a 5,000 gallon user, your bill would go up by $2.03 a month. I would estimate that about 70 to 75% of your monthly bills for customers are going to be 10,000 gallons or less. Yeah, you've got some larger customers here, obviously you do. But the majority of your monthly bills are going to be 10,000 gallons or less. So I hate to take these very complex financial plans and try to summarize it in terms of 1 or 2 numbers. I don't like to do that, but if I did, I would tell you that for the vast majority of customers, the average monthly bill would go up $2 to $3 under this plan. And as you can see from this plan, we're projecting similar increases for each of the next 4 years. Your fund is in very good shape right now, and this rate plan will enable you to continue that. This chart right here is just a forecast for those of you who really want to see how much additional revenue it is. It'll bring in about an extra $500,000 to $600,000 a year in water revenues and about an extra $400,000 to $500,000 a year in wastewater revenues. So, onto my last chart. Once again, obviously it's never easy to ask ratepayers to pay more. Nobody wants to pay more for anything at any time for any reason. However, there are benefits of implementing this plan. The city of Schertz has always shown a lot of prudence in its financial management in the past. You have recognized that costs go up and you have acted accordingly. As a result, this has given you the ability to fund your system, keep your utility in good shape, and minimize future rate increases to your customers. That's what this plan will do. It will enable you to fully fund all of your operating cost increases. It will enable you to completely remain self-sufficient with no need for general fund subsidies. And finally, it will enable you to continually provide a very safe and affordable source of drinking water for your customers. I strongly recommend that you give serious consideration to this rate plan. Thank you for letting me prattle on as long as I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you. Council, floor is open for discussion. No comments?
All right.
I guess you covered everything that council needed to know. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 23M17?
So moved.
Okay. Did that come from Councilmember Davis?
This was.
Okay. And I think I heard the second from Councilmember Haywood. Okay, council, any comments? Go ahead and cast your vote. Councilmember Scagliola?
Aye.
Okay, if you can go ahead and publish the vote. We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. All right, we'll move on to item number 15, ordinance number 23D20, amending the code section 86-118 to modify the school zone limits on Hubertus Road. This is an emergency first and final reading. Ms. Woodley, you have the floor.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Mr. Williams. This is, in fact, an emergency because I think school started today. And the school district and their contractors and our inspection staff have been furiously working to make sure that things are safe for the kids to get into the school building. It was also recognized that we needed to extend the school zone so that it encompassed the area in front of the new elementary school on Hubertus Road. So it was long enough for the Danville Middle School, but now we're extending it more toward 35 so that it captures the entrance to the elementary school also.
All right, council, floor is open for discussion. No discussion, is there? Oh, Councilmember Dalla.
I was just going to say, Mayor, I make a motion, we approve ordinance 23D20.
Second.
A motion made by Councilmember Dalla, second by Councilmember Hayward. Any other comments? Council, if you can cast your vote. Councilman Scagliola?
Aye.
You can publish the vote. Okay, 7 yeas, no objection, motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Woodley. All right, we'll move on to item number 16. This is a public hearing regarding ordinance 23S-15. Conduct a public hearing and/or action on amendments to Part 3 of the Schertz Code of Ordinances, Unified Development Code, Article 8, Section 21.8.4, Home Occupation, first reading. Mr. Haas, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, Mr. Williams. This is ordinance 23S-15, amendments to Article 8 of the UDC, Section 21.8.4, Home Occupation. Samuel Haas, Senior Planner. So, home occupations occur relatively regular in the city of Schertz, and although these businesses have little to no adverse impact on the community, they are still not code compliant because our home occupation section is fairly old. It's fairly rigid as well. So taking that into consideration, and with the sort of changing nature of work in the last few years, along with conversations with the development subcommittee, the staff has researched 8 other peer cities and see how they kind of handle their home occupations, and we decided to draft some amendments. We presented the first draft at the May 24th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. They gave us some feedback. We took that into consideration. We drafted some new amendments, and we came back on the June 28th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting with the adjustments where they voted to send it on with approval to you guys. So the amendments are fairly detailed, but this is sort of like a summary of what we're looking at here, and I'll just go through these one at a time. So we are adding language that is permitting home occupations as an accessory use in all residential zoning districts. The existing regulations has the area set aside for home occupations at 20%. We are proposing 30% with combined floor area with accessory structures, but we're capping that at 600 square feet. The existing regulations has retail sales prohibited. We are proposing to permit retail sales if the item is produced on premise in conformance with code. We're adding language clarifying that home occupation businesses must have a permanent residence of the home involved. We are adding language stating that only one home occupation business-related vehicle is permitted. Existing regulations say that home occupations must be within a principal structure. We are now permitting an accessory structure use. So we also added language clarifying that there's no exterior storage of equipment or display may occur. that it is an accessory use only. So we included a list of permitted uses, which I'll touch on here in a minute, and we also included a list of prohibited uses. And then we also added language clarifying that basically anything that we didn't cover in the permitted list is considered prohibited until further amendments. And then we also outlined an appeal process in case people disagree with our decision. So here is a snapshot of the proposed permitted uses. Office facility, author, artist, dressmaker, music teacher, tutoring, and these have definitions and stipulations in them, but this is just kind of like a little snapshot here. And then on the prohibited list, these are fairly specific. Animal hospitals, restaurants with on-premise food and beverage sales, automobile, boat, repair, things that are noisy, stinky, things like that. Commercial clothing, mortuaries, trailer, repair shops, things of that nature. And so I could elaborate further if there's any questions and comments, but these amendments would provide added clarity and flexibility to the existing home. With 2 Planning and Zoning Commission meetings, we think that they encompass a pretty, we think that we've captured what the commission is looking for, and then we do recommend approval to these Unified Development Code amendments as proposed and discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Haas. Okay, this item is on the agenda as an open public hearing. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to address the council in reference to this? Please come up to the mic and state your name and address.
This is Tim Duncan, and he has some comments about this. Just kidding. Ginger Levan, 1504 Red Cedar Cove. With some of these changes, they are in direct opposition to our subdivision's declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions. Like, we do not allow home businesses that have traffic coming in. Our streets just can't support that kind of additional. So the home businesses we do allow don't really include that kind of traffic. And what I'm seeing in this is we're going to have to modify our existing declarations in subdivisions to allow for this, and I'm not sure you're going to have too many subdivisions that are going to like this.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the council? Going once? Going twice? All right, public hearing is closed. Mr. Haas, could you please brief us the effect on the HOAs and now?
So we didn't cover this in this draft. I would imagine, and I maybe address. Yeah, I mean.
Mayor. This was going so quickly. Everybody would grab a Snickers bar.
Yes, Councilmember Whitaker has a question. Please, go ahead.
I'm sorry to be difficult. I think I understand based on the context, but can you please define home occupation? I mean, maybe it's self-explanatory, but.
Sure, it's basically a business that one can operate from their home, right? So if you think about it, you go to a restaurant, it's typically in a commercial zoning district, a real estate office, typically in a commercial zoning district, something like that. But there are people, as you know, these days who work from home. And it's more than just maybe professional kind of work, things like that. There are people that kind of do other things, whatnot. And so what we have had in our code of ordinances for a long time are sort of a list of what those are and some descriptions of what those are and what's allowed. What we've had are some complaints from folks that it's too restrictive, particularly after COVID, I think, with people kind of doing more from their own house and as more people working remotely, to look at the code of ordinances. So these are, while typically the zoning ordinance in residential districts limits you to very few uses, primarily a single-family residential home, the home occupation allows for people to conduct certain types of businesses from their home with approval for the city. And again, I think as the comment read, Typically, those are limited so as to minimize the impact on the neighbors, to keep kind of a residential feel. But often people may be doing these and there's very little evidence of it right now, or only minimal evidence and disruption with the proposed code.
So it always starts as a residence, and then they're bringing their business in.
That's right. And in general, and I'll say this, it's rather than it's bringing a business in, it's the resident of the home is conducting a business out of their home as well. And so you may think about that, well, that's a strange concept, but many of us, if we were encouraged by our parents, not say forced, to take piano lessons as children, we would walk down the street to a neighbor's house and spend 30 minutes to an hour, often in the summer, playing piano and then practicing at home in between those lessons. That would be a home-based occupation. And so you think about it in issues with traffic, well, you know, you're taking the lessons, you go, there's traffic in and out. But the amendments we've done are designed to minimize that kind of going forward. But again, one thing, Sam, I stepped out for a moment, may have covered, may not, you know, some of state law with regard to preparing the foods, the cottage food industry even trumps the city regulation. So there's some impact or evidence of it, but this is designed to minimize it. And just to answer the question, certainly folks have to comply with the city's ordinances and our codes, but then if a homeowner association had additional restrictions, that would be for the property owners to enforce and limit themselves on. So yeah, there may be cases where our ordinance would allow, but the HOA may preclude something.
That answers the question that I had.
What I was going to say.
Okay. Any other comments? I don't see any other comments, any other remarks. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 23S15?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion made by Councilmember Hayward and second by Councilmember Davis. Any other comments? Go ahead and cast your vote. Councilmember Scagliola?
Aye.
All right, if you can go ahead and publish the vote. We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Haas. All right, we'll move on to item number 17, ordinance number 23T18. Conduct a public hearing and adopt a budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2023 and ending September 30th, 2024 in accordance with the charter of the City of Schertz, Texas, providing for the filing of the budget, providing that this ordinance shall be cumulative of all ordinances, providing a servability clause, and providing an effective date. This is our first reading. Mr. Walters, you have the floor.
All right, good evening, Mayor and Council again. Tonight I'm going to go over the proposed budget. We'll have a public hearing, and if there's any questions over the budget and what's included or why something's included, we can answer those at that time. So real quick, as far as our timeline for adopting the budget and tax rate. So on August 4th, we got the preliminary tax rates in. Council set the preliminary maximum tax rate, which is decisions in this budget reflect that tax rate. Tonight is our first public hearing and first vote. We're approving the fee schedule. And September 5th, we'll have our second public hearing and final vote and adoption of both the budget and the tax rate, as well as ratify any tax increases included in the budget. And everything will go into effect October 1. So as far as the proposed budget, the 5 budget goals that staff had going into the creation of this budget. Goal number 1, staff compensation. Goal number 2, infrastructure. Goal number 3, related infrastructure, the consolidated CIP document. Goal number 4, increase staffing levels. And goal 5, renew or remodel facilities. And decisions presented by staff include those goals and priority and are reflected in this budget. So the budget highlights, we have the expanded programs to fund. We have wage adjustments, some new personnel, additional SPAM, which is our streets preservation and maintenance, some more roadway improvement funding, police equipment, and additional programs and other equipment as allowed with the dollars that we have available. So for the wage adjustment, what does that mean? We're actually breaking it down into 2 pieces. One is an ECI, or Employment Cost Index, that is published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics. As in the past 2 quarters, which they release their reports quarterly, wages and compensation for our sector are 4.7%. So we are proposing to raise rates across the board by that amount. Effective October 7th, and it would be about $1.4 million citywide impact. The second one is a class and comp study. So council has approved a class and comp study to be taken into effect in June. They're about to kick off here in August, getting in front of employees. While we have done the study, we'll get a result. Council is not obligated to accept the study and make these adjustments. They can see the results of the study and then make that decision. But we are committed to actually taking that data and doing something with it. We are seeing turnover across the city, people leaving for higher paying jobs. Our current estimate that when we did an internal study, we're about 38% percentile of the wage market. 50 percentile would be sort of average right in the middle, so we are well below average. A current estimate is about $2.6 million, further adjustment to get us in line to that 50 or 51st percentile and get us just at the halfway mark. If we make this adjustment in January, it would be about a $1.9 million effect on next year's budget. Overall, it would be a $2.6 million adjustment. So this is a primary focus on salaries. While the study will review benefits and supplemental pay and career progression opportunities, again, the primary focus is salaries so we can address the hiring and retention needs here in the city. We've also proposed and accepted tonight the cost of insurance increase. We believe that will be about $344,000 to $380,000, depending on employee selections this next November. New personnel. So we'll have Station 4 continuing under construction and design. We're going to hire firefighters up to the leading up to that grand opening, so we can get them on board, we can get them trained, we can get them outfitted, so they're not starting an brand new station with 12 new brand new firefighters. Also having an engineering administrative assistant for the Secretary's office, a part-time records clerk, and the police related to the legislative update for school campus security. We are putting in 5 more school resource officers as requested by the school district, SUC ISD. They're going in right now as unfunded, which means they'll be reflected in our personnel counts, but there's not going to be any dollars kind of associated with them in the budget. It's just kind of restating sort of the salary issue. We are having trouble hiring and retaining employees. That goes for police officers as well. So we don't believe we will be able to hire our current existing staff and meet our current staffing standards, as well as hire 5 more on top of that at this time. We will see after the wage adjustments if we get a little more interest and be able to fill those positions. And once we believe we can hire and fill 5 more officers for the school district, we'll enter negotiations with them and get that ironed out and get those officers on board. Additional SPAM funding for our roadway. So right now in our base budget presented has about $650,000 in there for our roadway maintenance. And we're also proposing a one-time street funding of $1 million, pulling that out of our reserve account and putting that towards roadway maintenance. So police equipment. The current existing body cam and in-car video camera system has been basically discontinued, to the lack of a better word. We are going to lack support and upkeep and maintenance for all of our existing equipment, which is forcing the city and some other communities to go out and replace their entire fleet of cameras. So Schertz has gone out and looked around. We have an option that will replace all of our in-car cameras and body-worn cameras, as well as our tasers, and all in this new program. It'll be a 5-year phase-in, about $550,000 a year. So the overall, if we wanted to purchase all of these today, it'd be about $2.7 million. But in this phase-in approach, we'll include continuous maintenance as well as replacing old equipment as it comes due, all included in that current cost. So some of the additional programs, we have additional library materials funding. We have some indoor maps additions to our GIS. We have implementation of vSphere servers for our public safety. We're going to change the structure of the court security officer funding, so that will be covered by the general fund 100%. Court will be able to use their court security fee that they collect for enhanced court security and start building up that fund. for future programs. On our fleet, we have a hydraulic hose crimper and hose reels for bulk fluid delivery. Facilities will be getting some tablets, working tablets, as well as a multi-use deck dock trailer. Fire has proposed to get the Opticom system for intersection lights. So basically, if one of our emergency vehicles are approaching a traffic light, they will be able to remotely change that light, allow us to get to our necessary location faster, as well as a strong arm multi-tool for helping us open doorways in case of a fire or other type of emergency situations. Under streets, we'll have a pothole truck and a asphalt laydown machine. So additional costs going towards street repair that's not reflected in the other numbers. So this is on top of that $50,000 for street maintenance, as well as the $1 million. So this will help us be able to do more in-house going forward. Under the EMS fund, they're going to staff Medic 5 overnight, which is a 5th ambulance that's currently going during the day. So they're going to hire 2 EMTs for that, and then another 2 EMTs to staff another medic truck, another ambulance during peak hours as well. That's 4 new personnel here. Drainage fund, very exciting, zero-turn mower. Get a new brand, this is a big mower type tractor, so we can take care of our drainage ditches. Under the water and sewer fund, they're adding a lead clerk, $58,000, as well as an automated phone payment system. So there'll be an automated system if you want to pay over the phone with a credit card. We're also going to replace our vacuum truck, a combination vacuum truck, for $675,000 for water and sewer operations. This basically sits a big pipe down into the main or lift station or manhole and sucks up a bunch of that guck, so our guys don't have to get down in there and do it themselves. There's also a fire hydrant and valve replacement program. We haven't really gone through and replaced old fire hydrants here in the city, so we're going to start that program so we can get all those replaced. So overall, what we have proposed, the general fund of just shy of $50 million, $49,927,000. It's an increase of about $4.8 million or 10% from the current existing budget, not including the infrastructure funding. So the non-personnel budget increases 9.6 due to the police equipment, other capital replacement, the TERS contribution, and as well as the roadway maintenance funds. So that does include the capital funding that we had mentioned. And then the personnel budgets increase about 11.3% to pay for the adjustments we had mentioned, insurance, ECI, as well as the 4 new positions, 4.5, I'm sorry. So historically, this is what our general fund budgets have been since 2013. This last year, 2023, you'll see this here. We added about 30 positions overall in the general fund of this last budget, and then this increase is mainly due to the fire replacement equipment as well as the other wage adjustments we have planned or proposed. So the sales taxes, along with the 3-year rolling average growth percentage. So sales taxes are fairly volatile, probably only followed by building permits, but is a main source of revenue here in the city. We've had some very high growth, especially since COVID hit. So as well as, of course, the CPI and cost increase for everything, we'll generate more sales tax. But we also noticed a lot of other spending around the city that it caused almost double-digit growth in our sales taxes over the past few years. If you look at the 3-year rolling average, it has started to trend down slightly. We believe that it's going to continue that trend. We are budgeting our long-term average about 7% growth for our sales tax numbers next year. Franchise fees is what utilities and other folks use, actually pay us to use our right-of-ways. Fairly flat, but it should grow relative to our population as more people move in, more people use telecom, more people use cable, more people have garbage and other service and other fees. So we believe this is going up, just going up slightly from what our current is, but we have noticed a steady growth in this area. Permits, as I mentioned, this is the other volatile type one. The school district back in 17-18 did a lot of big projects. Those are mainly commercial. Going forward, we are planning to actually hit our budget projection this year, and we are again stating a decrease in our overall permit revenue for next year. One area, commercial, hard to plan when that comes in. Big reason for these spikes. We have noticed that along with the Federal Reserve raising rates, and mortgage rates increasing, some slowdown, and new housing starts and new building permits coming in for the residential side. So the decrease is primarily related to that decrease as well. So under the fees have also pretty much decreased. This is anywhere from municipal court fines to the pool to rental facilities. We'll see there's also a couple of development type fees. So these couple of years in 17-18, where they kind of busted that budget, is related to 17-18 here. We had a big commercial development side on the permits. As we continue to see citations drop for our traffic divisions and other around the city, we are expecting to see some additional decreases in our fees going forward next year, both related to the decrease in residential permits as well as fewer citations. All right, on the personnel side, so the general fund budget go up. This is what we're projecting next year with some of the wage increases as well as how we performed related to our budget going forward. Under the operating side, relatively flat, not a lot of change in our non-personnel, non-capital. And then the capital outlay increase again related to the replacement of PD equipment, as well as the cost of vehicles continue to go up, just our normal replacement schedules. And this is something we hadn't seen before. This is the all funds proposed budget, as well as the proposed fund balance changes. So with the personnel proposed wage changes, as well as the $1 million in one-time funding, as well as the other type of PD equipment and other capital replacement costs. The general fund is proposed to reduce its fund balance by $2.5 million, just any tax rate changes. But and then overall, about $3.8 million reduction in fund balances. The other big portion of that is the Schertz Economic Development Corporation. That is for contribution towards infrastructure projects. So that's, again, a one-time kind of withdrawal we have there. I wanted to make council and everyone aware of this particular aspect of it. All right, the general fund, it does propose, meets the 26% fund balance requirement by ordinance. We'll probably get there by the end of 2025. We'll be in the 26%, the high 26% at the end of this next fiscal year as proposed. And the year after that, when the rest of the funding kind of comes through for the full year, we expect to be at 26%. Okay, wrapping up on the budget, we have the INS fund, our interest in sinking. So all the money raised from this tax rate actually goes to pay the city debt. Currently, we're estimating to issue about $37 million next year in 23-24. A lot of that's for infrastructure type projects, raw roadways, improvements. And then we have maybe 25-26, 26-27. Currently planned some facility type projects. And then 28-29, some additional probably roadways and other infrastructure type projects for another $25 million. What does that look like as far as our overall debt payments? So the blue line at the bottom is our current debt that we stack on at 2024. We issue those next year. We'll take on those payments in 2025 and going out that way. So it's a general steady trend if you look at past the initial jumps. So as debt falls off, we have some pretty substantial fall-offs coming up. That's where those big increases will come from and kind of offset and grow with the community. All right. Is there any questions over the proposed budget as it stands?
Thank you, Mr. Walters. All right, this item is on the agenda as a public hearing. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to address the council in reference to this subject? Please come up to the mic, and for the record, please state your name and address. And there is a 3-minute time limitation also.
Discussion about your canine is I didn't see in the budget, so since this canine is going to be retiring at some point, there's nothing in there to allow for the cost of obtaining a new canine, which can run anywhere from $15,000 if you're just doing the training, plus about $80,000 if you're buying a dog from overseas. So you really have to take the cost of that. The training cost for my service dogs is around $60,000 a year now. So it's not cheap to get a new canine, but they have to be able to do the job you want. So I think you should start budgeting for that, because that cost is coming. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else who'd like to address the council? Going once, going twice. Public hearing is closed. Council, any comments? I don't see anything from council. Is there a motion to approve ordinance number 23T18?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion made by Councilmember Hayward, second by Councilmember Watson. Any other comment? Any comments, council? If none, if you can go ahead and cast your vote. Councilmember Watson? Yeah. Councilmember Scagliola?
Aye.
All right, if you can go ahead and publish the vote. We have 7 yeas and no objection. Motion passes. So we'll move on to another public hearing, ordinance number 23T19. Conduct a public hearing and approve the ordinance approving the appraisal rolls, setting the tax rate, levying and assessing general and special ad valorem taxes for the use and support of the municipal government of the city of Schertz, Texas. And this is our first reading. Mr. Walters, the floor is yours.
All right. Now for the second half of municipal budget and tax rate annual review. We'll go over the tax rate as proposed. So the 2022 taxable value here in Schertz was just shy of $4.9 billion. Those same properties in 2023 are now estimated to be taxable value of $5.3 billion. And then we added $113 million of brand new construction and new homes, new businesses on top of that for a 2023 adjusted taxable value of $5.4 billion. Overall, that's an increase of $551 million here in Schertz. Also related to that is the disabled veteran homestead exemption. I want to give a brief update here. They're currently in the city of Schertz. There's $834 million of exempt property under this exemption. This is the disabled veteran homestead exemption. That's an increase of about 20% or $140 million over last year. And if the Schertz had a tax rate to generate the same amount of value or revenue, if this exemption did not exist, we could have a tax rate of 0.4126, and our current tax rate is 0.4850. This exemption does give 100% tax exemption for disabled veterans here in Texas. It's Texas-wide. City of Schertz fully supports this program. Disabled veterans have given quite a bit for the state and the country, and they should get everything that they deserve, this and more. The city does wish the state properly funded the program and an aid relief program. Did go before the legislature, sadly did not pass this time. So here in Schertz, 19% of homesteads actually have a disabled veteran homestead exemption in 2023. And then 51% of homesteads have some sort of disabled veteran exemption, which are not 100% exemption, but a partial exemption. So almost one out of every two homesteads, homes here in Schertz, is actually occupied by some sort of disabled veteran. And one of every 5 has the VHS exemption. Does not include rental properties, does not include the apartment complexes or anything like that. But we do have a high concentration here, and that does exempt a lot of property. The state does have an aid program, so if certain cities or counties have a high concentration like we do have in Schertz, they will provide some aid to help keep that tax rate down and the city services going. Sadly, they did not increase the amount of their aid this next 2 years, and they did not pass any other type of funding to help those folks out. And we do, so reach out to your local congressman, senator, representative, and let them know you support updating this at the next legislative session. So hopefully we can provide some more aid for communities. There are actually some out there that are affected more than us, and there are some out there that are affected just us, the same as us and more, and are not able to apply for any aid at all with the way current restrictions stand. So we are in support of keeping the program. We are in support of the state funding it appropriately. So with the taxable values that we do get, the state has us take those and calculate a couple of different tax rates. One is the no new revenue rate, which if we went with this rate, we would generate the exact same amount of total property taxes off of properties that existed in both years. So none of that new development, but everyone else that was already here in 2022, the Schertz can raise the same amount of money with this tax rate. We also have the voter approval rate, which council can go above this rate. If they decide to, it would require an automatic election this coming November. And we have the current rate, and then we have a proposed tax rate, which council has set on August 4th. Council cannot go above that rate without scheduling new public hearings, but can adopt a rate lower than this. So the current tax rate is 0.4950. The no new revenue rate was 0.4553 actually. The voter approval rate was 0.4872. We have some options to use unused increment, and that's what the city did last year. So with the changes in how the tax rate is calculated, any amount that we did not use in years prior, so between the no new revenue rate and the voter approval rate, or are adopted in the voter approval rate, if we didn't go all the way up to the voter approval rate, we actually got to save that tax rate difference and put it in a bank. We can come out and use that later. Schertz did that last year, and so we don't have any more sort of tax rate saved in the bank. So the highest rate we could go without going to the voters is 0.4872. We have currently set our proposed maximum tax rate at that 0.472, and the proposed budget assumes that rate. Other type of information, 1 penny on the tax rate is equal to about $544,000 in revenue, or $32.46 annually on the average home. Now, the overall tax rate for the city is actually broken down into 2 separate tax rates. One is the M&O, or maintenance and operations. That goes to fund the day-to-day city services, police, fire, your finance department, parks, and other service, quality services like that. That rate is proposed to go from $34.70 down to $33.24. And the INS, or interest and sinking, which goes solely to pay the city's debt, is proposed to go from $14.80 to $15.48. That is an increase, but overall the tax rate is proposed to decrease from $49.50 to $48.72. And what does that mean for the actual tax bills? So if the no new revenue rate is sort of our starting point to raise the same amount of money as we did prior, we went to the voter approval rate, the estimated tax bill on the average taxable home value in Schertz would go from $1,478 to $1,582, about a $103 increase annually, or 7%. That goes out to about $8.65 on your monthly escrow. The taxable value of homes in Schertz are $324,000 now. And then everything shown in the chart is on annual amounts. Now, something that is coming up this November is the school district homestead exemption change, which will exempt up to $100,000 of property value for the school district taxes. Based on the average taxable value here in Schertz, we estimate that to be about a decrease of $850 on taxpayer bills here in Schertz. Just from that. So if we went up $103 annually, that could be about $700. I'm not sure what the counties are doing, but they do the same thing. It could be a $700 over a dollar increase. But overall, we do expect the final tax bill with all taxing entities to actually decrease for all citizens this year. Only if that passes, so get out there and vote this November to make sure that goes through. A little plug for the school district and the state there. So historic rates, what does that look like? Back in 2006, we had 33.45 M&O tax rate, which was the highest we've had in a long time. Until about 2018, the M&O went up to 34.79 or 97, and since then dropped back down. So now we're about at the 33.25, lower than where we were in 2006. As far as the INS rate, back in 2006, we had 9 cents. And then we went through a couple of rate hikes on the INS rate related to the 2005 bond propositions, and then again in the 2010 bond propositions voted on and approved by the citizens of Schertz. But we did see large spikes, and staff looked at that and realized the impact it has on citizens, and we've worked really hard to plan our issuances over those years to bring the rate down or maintain it steady while giving Schertz a steady source of infrastructure funding. So since 2012, when we peaked at 20 cents, we have brought that back down to its lowest point of 14.80. Do we see a slight increase next year at 15.48 as proposed? Continue on with our infrastructure plans. Overall, what the rate looks like when they're stacked on top of each other. So you see in 2006, we did have the M&O and INS. We increased the INS and then decreased the M&O, so the overall rate still dropped back then. Since then, it has gone back up. But since 2021, our rate overall has continued to drop. With that, we'll answer any questions on the tax rate. And there is specific language to adopt this after the public hearing, if council would like to.
All right, thank you, Mr. Walters. All right. Once again, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to address the council in reference to this subject? Going once, going twice. All right, public hearing is closed. Council, any comments? I see none. All right, is there a motion to approve ordinance number 23T19?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Councilmember Whitaker, second by Councilmember Watson.
And the motion will have specific language.
Okay.
Do we have that specific language?
Where? I think we addressed that earlier, did we not, Ms. Edmondson?
Do I
Be
just
at the
read
bottom
the
of
ordinance? Oh, of the agenda? Where?
Okay, there's specific language that needs to be read.
Where is it on there? Motion language right here.
I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 0.4872, which is effectively a 7% increase in the tax rate.
Second.
And the motion has been seconded by Councilmember Watson. Council, any other comments? If you can go ahead and cast your vote. Councilmember Scagliola?
Aye.
Okay. You can go ahead and publish the vote. We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Walters. All right, we'll move on to item number 19, the Guadalupe Appraisal District Information Nominations and Voting Process. This information packets were provided to council and available for public viewing at our website, schertz.com. So we'll go on with requests by council for updates from our staff. Is there any? Okay, is there?
I do have one thing. This is, I guess, for Brian. I've heard some from the Belmont community about the traffic issues in front of the new charter school. Can you look into that and see what we can do to try to alleviate that situation?
Yes.
Okay, any other information? Is there any items or presentations for our future agenda?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if you please, I'd like to have a discussion about the definition of what parking on a prepared surface is.
Did you get that, Mr. Williams?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You wanted information or you want a agenda item?
I think we need to discuss it.
Okay,
It has
discussion.
a number of the businesses in the community.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Any other? Any other items you'd like to place on the agenda? None, we'll go ahead and move forward. Announcements by City Council. Mayor Pro Tem Brown?
Nothing tonight, sir.
Councilmember Davis?
Nothing, sir.
Councilmember Watson?
Nothing at this time.
Councilmember Whitaker?
Well, I attended the Northeast Partnership Luncheon, also the Rebecca Creek Distillery ribbon cutting. It's very fun. And the budget retreat. That is all.
Okay. Councilmember Dalla?
Attended the budget retreat as well as the volunteer appreciation banquet, and thank you to Sheila and Sherry on a job well done on executing that.
Councilmember Scagliola?
Nothing tonight, sir.
Okay. Councilmember Hayward?
Yes, I attended the Filipino Adobo Cook-Off, ATAC meeting, Northeastern Partnership Luncheon, the ribbon cutting of Mad Minds, the Investment Committee, the Chamber Luncheon, the National Watermelon Day, and I went up 76 feet in the ladder truck and dropped a watermelon. The volunteer banquet, which I think was a huge success, and I'm glad that with Sheila and Cherie, it came off without a hitch, and then the budget retreat. That is all.
Okay, thank you. I'd just like to mention, our city secretary staff, Ms. Edmondson, Ms. Courtney, and Councilmember Hayward, thank you for putting the volunteer banquet together. It was great. It was great success. We had great food, great entertainment, and thank you all for putting that together. With that, we had 7:51. We stand adjourned.